Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen wa salatu wa salamu ala ashrafil anbiya wal mursaleen Sayyidina wa nabiyyina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Amma ba'd, fa'uzu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Innal ladzina qalu rabbuna Allah thumma istaqamu tatanazzalu alayhimul malaika alla takhafu wa la tahzanu wa abshiru bil jannati allati kuntum tu'adun. My dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. I'm speaking to you today on the role of youth in Islam, especially in the context of living in the Western societies and the challenges faced by Muslims in living in the West. There's no doubt and there's no two ways about it that youth are the vanguard of Islam, and they've always been. In fact, you can pick any successful movement in the history of mankind and you will find that it was led by the youth of their time. Islam is a religion, it's a way of life, and it's also a movement for building societies and world in line with the divine teachings of Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this work by its very nature requires a very long and hard struggle, and therefore it requires that generation after generation young people join in to take leadership roles in this work. The struggles of the Prophet alayhi salam, all of them, even if they lasted decades and centuries, never showed any sign of exhaustion or frailty and kept going with the zeal and zest of the youth. There are 4 hallmarks of the Islamic movement in any generation, in any century. The first thing is Iman, which is a strong faith. And the second is Ikhlas, which is sincerity. The third thing is passion and zeal. And the fourth thing is action and readiness to sacrifice. And my dear brothers and sisters, all 4 of these things can be found in abundance amongst the youth. That is why they have always led the cause of Islam. Your hearts and minds are pure and uncorrupted by the worldly interest, which means that you are blessed with a higher level of Iman and Ikhlas. Your passion and zeal, guided by the strong sense of purpose, and your energetic proactiveness also makes you the leader of this movement. This is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has always decreed a youthful presence amongst the core group leading the mission of all the prophets alayhimu salam. And the same was true of our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his Sahaba. If you look around the seerah of the Sahaba, Rizwanullah Ajmain, you will see that a large number of the Sahaba were actually young people. They accepted Islam well before their parents did. Abu Bakr, Umar, Usman, Ali, Ammar ibn Yasir, all of them accepted Islam before their parents did. The city of Medina became Muslim due to the sacrifice and hard work of 3 young leaders, 3 young Sahaba, Mus'ab ibn Umair, Usaid ibn Hudayr, and Sa'd ibn Mu'az. All 3 of them were in their 20s. 2 of them were there in early 20s, under the age of 25. Sa'd ibn Mu'az, when he became Muslim, the very next day half of the Medina became Muslim. Mus'ab ibn Umair, when he was martyred, he was only 28 or 29 years old. Sa'd ibn Mu'az, when he was martyred at the Battle of Trench, he was younger than 35 years old. The youth have always been the vanguard of Islam. That is the role of youth. That is the place of youth. And that is why, my dear brothers and sisters, you have a huge responsibility on your shoulders. You have many duties, and the Ummah has a lot of expectations from you. You need to think long and hard about this responsibility and strive to the best of your abilities. Work hard, be prepared to make sacrifices, and decide what your role is going to be in this life, in this cause of Islam, and this struggle for the Islam. And you have to step forward to discharge your duties while you're still blessed with your useful abilities. And in order to prepare yourself for this responsibility, you need to hold on to a few things. You need to have a few things in the front of your mind. The first and foremost thing is the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because that is the basic tenet of our iman. That is where, without that, nothing else works. And secondly, you have a firm and clear belief and aqidah that the legislation and rules of our lives and determination of our values by which we live our lives rest with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Because man-made paradigms, man-made systems of belief, man-made values and morals and ethos are ever changing. According to these man-made rules, what was right in one day and age becomes wrong in the next. We have a much better and superior set of values, morals and rules and ethics set for ourselves by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who is the ever-knowing and the Lord of the Day of the Judgment. Which brings us to the next point, which is the aqidah of the akhirah, of the Day of Judgment. Because we must watch our every move in our lives if we want to be raised among the right people on the Day of Judgment. On that day, when Jannah will be brought close to the muttaqeen, and those who have been rebelling against the Lord will be shown the hellfire. وَأُزْلِفَتِ الْجَنَّةُ لِلْمُتَّقِينَ وَبُرِزَتِ الْجَحِيمُ لِلْغَاوِينَ. When the armies of Iblis will be gathered and brought to stand in front of Allah Jalla Jalaluhu, and they will blame each other for their state that they find themselves in, because they will find no friends. On that day we want to be raised amongst the right people. Therefore, please plan your life with your dunya and your akhirah in mind. Look at your strengths and weaknesses, and prepare yourself for the duty to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, His Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the duty to the community, to the people around you. And most important of all, the thing that underpins all of this, have faith and confidence in yourself and the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Stand firm in the face of doubts and challenges that will be thrown at you. And one of the biggest challenges of our times that you are facing, that we are facing, all of us are facing, is that we are constantly bombarded with, and we are constantly inadvertently absorbing values that are antithetical to our faith. We are living in times where many evils have become good, they are considered good, and where many goods are not considered acceptable. We are constantly bombarded with messages that condition our understanding of what is right and what is wrong. This on its own may be a sign of a vibrant and a healthy society, but the problem is that we, the audience, it becomes a problem when we are not sure about our own values and what we stand for. And we cannot tell if they are different from what we are being told. And then we are then unable to remain steadfast on our own values, on our own ethos, on our own principles. And that is how, my dear brothers and sisters, slowly and gradually you go down the slippery slope, and the right becomes wrong and the wrong becomes right. And if we are not confident in our own values, if we are unable to stand firm on our own knowledge, on them, on our own principles, then our knowledge, our ibadah, our community leadership cannot stop us from going astray. We start making compromises, and a stage comes when we start believing in a distorted vision of Islam, in a distorted version of Islam, based on our own compromises that we've made all along the way. So this is a very significant risk, and it is one that has been recognized by the scholars and revivalists of our history who have fought against these challenges. You look at the work of all the great scholars of Islam in the last 1400 years, you look at the work of Ghazali, and you'll see that he purged the teachings of Islam, he purged the Greek and Roman philosophers' influence on the teaching of Islam at his time. You look at the work of Sayyid Ahmad Sarhindi, he did the same living in the Indian subcontinent. Sayyid Maududi and his contemporaries did the same to remove the colonial influence on the teaching and understanding of Islam in the last centuries. And now in this day and age, my dear brothers and sisters, living in the West, we find ourselves at the front line of this onslaught of challenges to our system, our paradigms of values, our beliefs, our morals. And you, being the youth of Islam living here, you, the Shabab of Islam, have to lead us in facing these challenges. That is where your role is. That is where your position is in this movement for the revival of Islam. You are best placed to observe the wider society, the society around you, and you are best placed to engage with them. You are best placed to present the Islamic viewpoint and be the effective force of change in keeping changes that is in keeping with the teaching of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But for this, I stress again, first of all, we all have to be confident in our deen, its values, its morals. At the times when we are being conditioned to absorb the values, morals and ethics that are polar opposite to that of Islam. That is the key message. This is one thing, my brothers and sisters, that I'd like you to take away from today. At an individual level, how do we recognize the risk that we are conditioned to accept these values? When does it happen? And how does it affect our mind? And what are the various stages of this process? We need to recognize each and every of this stage so that we can deal with them and avoid going down the slippery slope that we find that follows from there on. I'll try to explain this by using a story that Maulana Jalaluddin Rumi first told 500 years ago. And it was retold in the last century by Allama Iqbal. And it's in the form of a Persian poem, a Farsi poem by Iqbal. It's a beautiful story. It's a story of tigers and sheep. Please bear in mind that in this story, you are meant to be the lions and the tigers. You are meant to be the lions and the tigers. And this story tells us how the weak but clever sheep conditions the behavior of the majestic and brave tigers and successfully rules over them. The sheep conditions the behavior of the tigers and turns the table around and they start ruling over the tigers. That is totally against the nature. That is totally against what they were both destined for, the role they were both destined for. That is what the story tells us. And the tigers accept this change and happily submit themselves to the rule of the sheep. And that is the most bizarre thing. That's the most unnatural thing of this. So Rumi and Iqbal say that once upon a time there was a very large flock of sheep living on a green pasture. They were living a very easy life. Their numbers were growing. They were so comfortable in their life that they became totally oblivious to any dangers that was coming their way. So they were living all was hunky-dory, very beautiful life, cushy lives. And then one day their fate caught up with them. And from the neighboring jungles, a group of tigers, a pack of lions came out and started ambushing the lush green pastures and the sheep living in there. And those tigers were so strong and powerful that they declared the rule over the sheep. They did this because that is what the natural system was. That is what the natural place was. That is what they were destined to be. And the natural way is that the tigers must have their prey, and the sheep then lost their freedom. The meadow was crimson with the blood of the sheep all over. So with this, Iqbal tells us that only strong and capable people are victorious. Weak people can never protect their interest. You have to be strong. You have to be capable. You have to develop your capability and strength for you to assert yourself, to find your place, to play your role. However, amongst the sheep, there was one old and wise sheep amongst the flock. She was experienced, she was very clever. She looked at the state of the affairs of her people, and she was very worried. And she thought long and hard about that, and she came up with a scheme to lead its folks out of this. And there's a lesson in there that Iqbal says that the weak and oppressed, when someone is weak and oppressed, they develop the sharp ability to scheme and plan as a protective instinct to protect themselves, to get themselves out of this difficulty. And the passion for revenge makes the mind of an oppressed work fast towards organizing a rebellion, turning it around. That is also a fact. So that's what the sheep did. She realized something very profound. She realized that the sheep cannot defeat the tigers or the lions by force. But what she realized that it is definitely possible to turn the lions or the tigers into sheep. If they make the lions and the tiger forget their nature, then this is entirely possible. And that is what she did. That is what she did. How to implement this plan? The wise old sheep crafted a very clever plan. She went to the tigers and the lions and she announced that she has been sent to them, to the lions, as a prophet of God to the ummah of the lions. So, claiming to be a Nabiyyah, this sheep went and she told the tiger that they are liars, they are living a life upon the wrong path. Despite the fact that they were living their own nature, they were on the very right place where they were supposed to be. But this sheep went, this Nabiyyah, false Nabiyyah went and told them that you are on the wrong path, that their luck will not last forever. Now remember, you are the tigers in this story. The sheep are the messages that you're getting from around, which is totally contrary to the message of Islam. But that is how they condition you. That you're told that to become acceptable, you have to look at, you have to change your nature. You have to make compromises. And now listen and watch and observe what happens next. So the sheep goes to them and she says that you are the liars, you're on the wrong path, you are lost in the dark ages, and that she brought light for them. The sheep brought light for them, and she told them that she has come to establish rules and laws for them. The sheep has come to establish rules and laws for the lions and the tigers. And she said to them, repent of your blameworthy deeds, O plotters of evil, bethink yourself of good. Whoso is violent and strong is miserable. Your success depends on self-denial. That's what she told them. The spirit of the righteous is fed by eating grass, not meat. To be righteous, you have to start eating grass. You can't eat meat. That's what she said. She said that the vegetarians are liked by the God more than those who eat meat. She told them the sharpness of your teeth brings disgrace upon you, and it makes the eyes of your perception blind. She said that the paradise is actually for the weak people. Strength is nothing but a means of misery. It is wicked actually to seek greatness and glory. That's what she told them. She told them, the sheep tells the lion, being poorer is much better than being a ruler and a prince. And she said, oh, you who take the delight in the slaughter of sheep, go and slay thyself, and thou wilt have the honor. Don't be united. Lightning does not threaten a single corn seed. It threatens the whole stack of corn. So if you stay away from everyone, that's where you're protected. If you're united and together, you look big, you'll be attacked. So don't go for the unity. Stay away from everything else. Stand alone. Close your eyes, close your ears, close your lips, that your thought may reach the sky. Forget yourself so that if you are wise. If you do not forget yourself, you are mad. She tells them to deny their own abilities. And she told them the ruling of these pastures of the world means nothing. Don't run after a phantom. The tigers were, by then, they were exhausted by a hard struggle, by living a life. They had to go and fight and eat their prey. They liked the advice. They had set their hearts on enjoyment of luxury. They started listening to that. And this advice pleased them. And in their stupidity, the tigers swallowed the charm of the sheep. And he that used to make the sheep his prey, now embraced the sheep's religion. Deen-e Gosfanda, Mazhab-e Gosfanda. That's the term that's used by Rumi and Iqbal. The tigers started eating the grass and the fodder. Their tigerish nature was then broken. Their nature started to change. Their fodder, the grass, blunted their teeth and put out the flashing of the brightness of their eyes. And by degrees, courage ebbed from their breasts. The sheen departed from their mirror. The frenzy of uttermost exertions remained not. The craving of action after action dwelt in their heart no more. The passion to give their best went away, and the desire to proactively take on the challenge that had previously worn their heart, it's now disappeared. They lost the power and the resolve to be independent. With that, they lost their reputation. With that, they lost their prestige. With that, they lost their fortune. Their steel claws lost their strength and grip, and their souls died and their bodies became tombs. The tigers, their strength diminished while their fear of life increased. They started fearing life. That fear robbed them of the courage that actually defined their existence. And the lack of courage produced thousands of illnesses. It makes one miserable, soulless, and low-minded. The tiger that was once the embodiment of pride and might, when it followed its own original values and place in the ecosystem that was granted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, was now lulled into a slumber by the sheep's charm. And that, remember, you are supposed to be the tigers in this. And the sheep are the messages and the forces around you that are telling you that you have to accept that to be accepted. And the worst thing was that instead of realizing their decline, they led themselves to believe that this fall of grace was actually in fact the height of civilization and height of culture. That was the biggest loss of that. Instead of finding off the challenges, they absorbed the slow drip feed of the values that were polar opposite to their own superior nature and superior values, and they became content with living like the sheep. This is the story that was told by Maulana Rumi 500 years ago. It was retold by Iqbal in the last century, and Sayyid Maududi stated that Islam is a kash-e-marda, na ke mazhab-e-gosfanda. It is the deen of brave men and women. It is not the deen of the sheep. So my dear brothers and sisters, know that you are the future of Islam and Muslims all over the world. You are at the front line of this battle of ideas and values. You are the bearers of the divine message that is superior to the man-made messages, the man-made systems of belief systems. Know your worth and have confidence in Allah's message. You are the lions and the tigers. Do not let the sheep of this world make you believe that your values, your ethos and morals are not compatible with a civilized society. That you have to give up. Know that you have to give up on, don't let anyone tell you that you have to give up on your values to be accepted in the civilized society. You have to stand firm on your own values. You have to engage with others. You have to have dialogue. Tell them what the message of Islam is, and be prepared to make sacrifices in the way of Allah, because that is the sunnah of all the Prophet ﷺ. It's not an easy way, but we were not sent here for an easy life. The tigers did not have their glory and pride and might and majesty by living an easy life. That is where we are. Know that you have to love Allah. You have to love His Prophet ﷺ. Remember the day of judgment. Remain steadfast and know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has promised you that He will send angels upon you to tell you that fear not, do not be sad. We bring glad tidings for you of the heavens that you have been promised. You just have to stay the course. You just have to stand firm. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take care of your dunya and the hereafter. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you all. And may He bless the ummah that is waiting for you to come forward and lead them. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Assalamu alaikum.